Zimbabweans have mastered the art of understanding their politicians. If we show them our cards, they will beat us up, but we will beat them in the ballot box. It's a secret. It's a foregone conclusion.
Zimbabwe edges towards the 2023 general elections. We, as a nation, we are 2 months away from voting for a president, a House of Assembly member of Parliament, and a councillor. Now, as we do so, there are a number of controversies and issues that have come on Zimbabwe's path and road to these elections. Controversial laws like the Patriotic Act, which has been encompassed in the Criminal Law Codification Act. The delimitation report, controversies around the voters' roll, and missing names on the voters' roll, and alleged shadowy organizations who are working flat out to allegedly rig the election. Now on this, The Free Talk, we discuss those issues. We discuss why you should care. We discuss and get the answers of what you should know. Now this is The Free Talk with me, your host as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Now join me soon after this break as we talk about the how, what, why, and where ahead of these elections. Welcome back to this, The Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation, with me, your host as usual, Dara. Now we will be talking elections, we will be talking law, we will be talking economy. Now, to help me discuss these issues is Honorable Member of Parliament for Norton, the Independent, Honorable Temba Mliswa. He joins me here on this, The Free Talk, to talk to you about issues that matter in this election. Honorable, welcome to this, The Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation. Now, Zimbabwe is going towards an election, and there's been a lot of controversies around the preparation to this election and what it could possibly bring to the people of Zimbabwe. Now, I want us to discuss these controversies from the standpoint of a member of Parliament. You have been debating laws in Parliament that will affect this election, especially the Patriot bill, which is also the Criminal Codification Act. Let's start from there.
Yeah, indeed. I think thanks again for being invited to this show at a time when Zimbabwe is testing its democracy. But in testing the democracy, there are a number of issues that have got to be considered that have got to be put onto the table. Who are the advocacy for democracy? It's the people. And again, there's also the legislator who has to play a role. Despite of the numbers, whether the ZANU-PF enjoys 2/3 majority in parliament, does not stop the opposition from putting across and fighting and ensuring that the reforms which have been deviled each election are attended to, because they are the people who suffer. The ruling party has state apparatus on its side, and if you want to say it, it is the champion, it is the standing champion. And for you in a match of boxing, for you to really win the thing belt, you must knock down the champion. You must knock down the champion. You must not be standing. The question is that, has the opposition, through the legislative arm of this country, knocked down the champion? Knocking down the champion from a legislative point of view has got nothing to do with numbers. But you have to also look at the fact that you are going for elections, you are the government in waiting, you are the opposition in waiting, or you are somehow waiting for things to happen for the betterment of the people. What have you done from a caucus point of view? Because each political party, at the end of the day, they have their own caucuses that they have to discuss issues which are critical. So while the sitting government is ZANU-PF, it's comfortable with the opposition not raising real issues, and they will not bring the issues. Instead, they will then come up with laws which they believe will more or less keep them in power. What I'm saying, there's the PVO bill. The PVO bill is suspected to have been put together because of the NGOs supporting the opposition. The Patriotic Act bill, again, is seen to be curtailing the opposition. But in so doing, is it just the opposition you're targeting, or you're also violating your own constitution in terms of the freedom of expression, with the media also is part of, and the freedom of association? So while these laws are being put together, don't we have laws already that can deal with malpractice of the PV, of the NGOs, the malpractice of any individual? We have many laws, and the critical issue is that the current laws that we have they been put to test? If they have not been put to test, they're subject to review and amended. Are you with me? So the critical points, so that we cut the long story short, is the opposition is an agenda. The agenda that they have is to address issues that they say affected them in not winning. What is it that they've done to deal with that? As an independent member of parliament, I don't go through primaries. I've been able thrice to beat the opposition and the ruling party in each election. So I have my own system, my own ways of ensuring that my elections in my constituencies are done to the best test of democracy, to the best test of being free, fair, and credible. The onus is not on state machinery. The onus is on you who is contesting. And I think the opposition have not done their job. They've been sleeping on duty. They've been more worried about walking out of parliament. They've been more worried about having to boycott certain sittings and not coming up with an agenda which they say we are going into parliament. In the next 5 years, what do we intend to achieve? There are only three agendas. 1, reform must take place. 2, reform must happen. 3, reform must be executed. The first word being reform. And then you go into the next election knowing very well that the reforms have happened. The reforms which we talk about are just not for them. It's for the people at the end of the day. There's got to be confidence in the entire system for people to vote at the end of it. And that confidence comes about the legislator being able to bring that. The private bills were supposed to come through so that we're able to do everything. Like you rightly said, the issue of laws are to ensure that there's good governance for the people of Zimbabwe, so that there's also democracy, which is critical for there to be good governance. Without democracy, it becomes a problem. 43 years after independence, we seem to be in the same position. The electoral, the delimitation report was controversial. Court applications were done and so forth. Then you now go to the primary elections in each party, already ZANU-PF had theirs licking wounds, others are. Triple C is yet to announce who exactly will be contesting in these elections. So members of parliament on the opposition who are supposed to be mobilizing people for voter inspection are not doing that because they don't know who's going to contest. You've got 2 months to go before elections. How come you don't know who's going to contest? So why should I be using my resources to mobilize people for voter inspection when I don't know whether I'll stand or not? So they also must be given time to also lick their wounds, which really at the end of the day creates an atmosphere of saying even within the internal systems there's no democracy. What about the general election itself?
Now, I want us to zero in on this Patriotic Act. You were ejected in Parliament when you were discussing this particular legislation. Let's talk about that episode.
I still don't know why I was ejected, because it was a debate. And fortunately, if I was out of order, a member of parliament from the opposition would have stood up to rise on a point of order, say, Honorable Mliswa is misinforming or is not right in saying that Gukraundi happened under ZANU-PF. You see, the speaker at the time, acting speaker, Honorable Tatenda Mavetere, I think wanted to seemingly protect the president, protect the party, but I had not even mentioned the president, Idi Mnangagwa. She does not know what else I was going to say after that, because he was part of the government which did Gukraundi. But at the same time, the leader was R.G. Mugabe and so forth, who has to more or less, may his soul rest in peace. But when we talk about history, we have no choice but to talk about even those who were later. So he was the commander-in-chief at the time. He was the leader of the party. So I think it was a way of appeasing and not knowing where Mliswa is going. Probably Mliswa was going to say, but President Mnangagwa was part of it. Not knowing that I was going to say, but the Honorable, His Excellency, the Vice President, has shown some acceptancy, because he's put together the chiefs to look into this. Whether the right people to do with it, that's a different thing altogether. But he has decided, he's initiated that. And that's where my debate was going to. In initiating that, you also must also realize that who is best qualified to then say you are patriotic and you are not and so forth. I also wanted to touch on the issue of the liberation struggle, where if you look at our preamble, it does not talk about patriotism, it talked about nationalism. It was the Chimrenga national liberation, which every son and daughter of this country sacrificed to be able to go there. But immediately after independence, you had Lookout Masuku and Dumiso Dabengwa arrested. And yet they were patriots at the end of the time. Not only that, I wanted to talk about, Comrade Joyce Mjuru was expelled from ZANU-PF. Comrade Mnangagwa was expelled from ZANU-PF. Then himself, the late Comrade Mugabe, was expelled. So are we saying they were not patriotic? You see? Well, are we saying they were not patriotic? Because once you are expelled from a party, you have not stuck to the founding principles of the struggle. Not only that, you have not shown that you are best to serve the interests of the party, because it's a liberation movement. And being a liberation movement, the aspect of patriotism is important. So is it right if I say the expulsion of Comrade Mjuru, Comrade Mnangagwa, the late Comrade Mugabe, is as a result of them not being patriotic? So this is where I was taking it. But today, the current president is ED, but he was expelled from ZANU-PF. Why did they expel him from ZANU-PF? And it is known as, it's also known as a ZANU-PF Patriotic Front. Patriotic Front. So basically, the leader did not show patriotism. So we had to expel him. So that was my question. But today he is the president. So to me, if we had such a law in place, how many people would survive? And who's qualified to be able? The liberation struggle was fought by Zanla and Zipra. Okay. Not only that, there's also the properties which belong to ZAPU. The unit accord was signed. Why have they not been given back to ZAPU? The way that the late Joshua Nkomo managed to find his way out of Zimbabwe wearing a dress in the borders, yet he was Father Zimbabwe. I mean, he was patriotic. The people who did that, were they patriotic? You see?
So how do we arrive to the definition of patriotism and then qualify to say your statements are not patriotic?
You see, it's action. We've got to look at the action. It's no point you having this narrative of saying we're a patriotic front when your behavior does not talk about patriotic. It talks about a sovereign nation, okay, in terms of people not also damaging the country. But has corruption itself not destroyed the country? Has it not destroyed the country? What have we done about it? There's a song which the liberation movements also spoke about. Things belong to the people. And if you go and take what belongs to the people, then you are not for the people. You are unpatriotic. Is ZANU-PF not involved in corruption? Is it not taking what belongs to the people? So how come you don't have punitive measures on people who are damaging the country? The sovereignty of the country is also dependent on its economic power. It's economic capital. Without economic capital, you cannot be a sovereign nation. You end up being compromised. You end up allowing people to come into your country and take what belongs to them, what does not belong to them. They benefit at the end of the day. The investors that we're bringing in, are they really patriotic? Are they nationalistic? We must also be looking at that. And in so being, are they looking after the workers properly in all these setups? We're having noise and a lot of complaints about the Chinese not treating Zimbabwean well in terms of the way they work.
But Honorable Member of Parliament, the President and his government have this mantra, Nika inovakwa nevenevai. And doesn't this bring in that patriotism and departs from what you're talking about?
No, kuti nyika inovakwa nevenevayo. We must ask venevapi. You've got to understand that the 17th of November 27 March was a Zimbabwean march. And in being a Zimbabwean march, the current president had been expelled from ZANU-PF. But the people marched for him. White, black, all the political parties marched because they believe we're starting on a new page. And they'd already set the tone to what they expected the country to be. One, inclusivity. The government thereafter was supposed to be inclusive. Okay, because the march was about Zimbabwe. We want to start on a new page, and everybody knew the current president, Idi Mnangagwa, would be the president. They had confidence in him that he would be able to make things inclusive. With the history that he had of being a lawyer, being a speaker, and again being a reformist and a Democrat, they welcomed that. Everybody knew that the current president would be the president after restore legacy and so forth. We're restoring our legacy. In restoring our legacy, we may have to go back to what made Zimbabwe to be what it is. It was a protracted liberation struggle involving people who were for their country. Zipra was fighting for this country. Zana was fighting for this country. Him having been part of the struggle was supposed to inculcate that spirit into the government that he was putting together, so that we then say, you cannot say when things are good and you have power, when things are bad, when everybody is together, then you then apportion blame to others. Let's have a discipline, a culture of apportioning blame to all of us as Zimbabweans, because we remain inclusive and so forth. He has the prerogative. He must understand that ZANU-PF cannot itself solve the problems of Zimbabwe. It's impossible.
Are you saying the president has failed to bring inclusivity in this country?
To me, I expected inclusivity, and I think it was a betrayal on the people. If I say failed, probably would not be wrong. I think the people of Zimbabwe were betrayed. They were betrayed in thinking that we are opening a new chapter of inclusivity, a new chapter of love. On its own, that's a transitional government. That's a GNU. And he had the powers to do that, to put a team Zimbabwe. We should focus on Zimbabwe. And at this point in time, there would be no need for elections, because people are saying, but we are living well. We are sharing the problems. We are sharing the success. But right now, success is apportioned. Okay, failure is apportioned. That's not what the founding principles of the struggle were about. We're about economic emancipation to all Zimbabweans. We're about democracy. One man, one vote, everybody being part of this. Leaders must understand that it takes a lot for you to be able to. America is good at it. If you look at Barack Obama, he contested Hillary Clinton in the elections, but one of the greatest art of a politician is to keep your enemy close to you. And she was then the Secretary of State. She was the Minister of Foreign Affairs dealing with international relationships with America. She was given a job. You know, why in this country can Chamisa be given a position despite him losing? Why can Monzora be given a position and all that? Tokozani Kupe, why can't she be given a position and so forth? Because the prerogative to hire and fire lies with the president. And there's got to be an understanding within the ZANU-PF party that you can't do this on your own. Just as, in fact, you messed things up in the 2017 when before that you fired people like Joyce Mjuru, myself, and all that. You also fired the president, which means you had your own internal differences. And in you having gone through that, you were supposed to learn that our internal differences have hurt the country. Then, you know, the country came in to fill that gap which, you know, had been created by ZANU-PF of having the toxic politics of name dropping, of also accusing certain people who fought for this country not to be for it and so forth.
But someone would argue that you speak like this, unhappy about ZANU-PF, because you are bitter, you were fired from ZANU-PF, and you would have loved to be holding lofty positions in ZANU-PF.
I had a lofty position in ZANU-PF. I was the youngest Central Committee member. I was a provincial chairman. I was a provincial chairman in a province where I don't come from. Okay, I was an MP in an area that I don't come from. So if you talk about my political career, CV, it speaks volumes. I had interactions with the president on a one-to-one once a month for more than 3 hours discussing issues that we needed to discuss. So I reached my own thing.
So you missed that now and you're bitter?
No, but I was in it. I was in it and I did very well. You know, and if I had missed it, I would have gone back to ZANU-PF like other people have done. I've not gone back to ZANU-PF. I've remained independent. I've beaten them twice in the election. I'm going for the hat-trick. I'll do it for the third time. So I don't need to belong to any party. And that's my education with the Zimbabweans. You don't need to belong to a political party to drive the agenda of the people from a national interest point of view. National interests remain national interest. And in national interest, you don't need to belong to the party. And it's my prayer that come election day, Zimbabweans realize that these political parties have created problems for us. They come on board and all they do is to blame each other. This one has not done this, this one has not done this, this one has... In the process, the people suffering. Wake up, Zimbabwe, 43 years after independence, you can't be quiet. You cannot be dark. Okay, there's light there. Go and choose a person that you believe will represent you effectively, whether white, black, whatever. That's what we need in this country, 43 years under independence. The politics of intimidation, violence and fear is long gone. 1980, children are born today, they are 43. They are voting better than those who are 68 and so forth. So where at some point should we expect a transition? Where should we expect a transition? There's got to be a transition that goes with the will of the people, that goes with the generational consensus, saying it's our time, we'll never sell the country out and so forth. They seem to be selling the country out and not any generation.
Do you think this issue of selling the country out is a genuine issue that needs to be looked at? Is there any Zimbabwean who would, once getting into power, sell the country?
No, it's a narrative they use which unfortunately is not tolerated anymore, it's not accepted, because what we try and do is they try and scare you. No wonder why the most educated people in this country, ones with capacity, don't enter politics, because they scare you. Okay, if you're a woman, you're a professional, they think you're probably there because you're sleeping with somebody. That's the stigma which is there, which is not correct. Okay, because you've got professional women who you need. That quota system of women, why don't we say so many must be professionals so that they're able to push the agenda of the women and so forth. So many must be youth so that the youth are also respected at the end of the day. But as soon as you get there, they start singing for you. Oh, this and that, how did you get here? You were sleeping with this one, sleeping with this one. And because of their integrity, they then back off. So it's a tactic which has always been used before. How come I've beaten ZANU-PF yet people say they rig, they're violent at the end of the day? Okay, I've done that. I had by-elections which were independent when ZANU-PF had nobody but myself. In Rungwe West, it was violent, it was the same thing. In Norton again, I was there, they had all resources to put together to one constituency, but they still lost. So this is the question that I ask every Zimbabwean today. Why have I won elections against ZANU-PF in a by-election?
Some say because you're ZANU-PF.
what defines one who's ZANU-PF? What defines one who's ZANU-PF? And this is the polarization I talk about again on the opposition. Okay, I have raised more issues than the opposition in that parliament. I've protected them. I've stood by them to drive the national agenda. Okay, besides Tendai Biti, who is one of the few that I respect and so forth, Settlement Chikwinya, brilliant too, but he can only say so much. He can only say so much because he's whipped. But I have stood for national interest. I have stood for national interest. Maybe they have stood for party's interest, for the political party interest. But I have stood for national interest, which also has actually made them benefit at the end of the day.
Maybe is the quality of people that we send to parliament up to standard so that they can even appreciate the issues that you're talking about?
Listen, I walk around and you'll be amazed how many people out there are able to say, Honorable Mliswa, we thank the work you're doing. Somebody says to me, can I buy you a Coke? And I say, why? He says, you just do good for us. Keep on doing the good. That is what keeps me going at the end of the day, that there are one or two people who are able to acknowledge the work that I'm doing. Because the politics in Africa, I said, when you speak out, you know, they'll take you out and everything. You know, there's a lot of suspicion, allegations.
Let's talk about the quality of the MPs that are in parliament. Are they competent enough to be legislators?
It's not the first time I'm saying this. It's on up 10th time in that the legislators you have in parliament, the councillors you have in the wards, are a true reflection of the people. You, all you here. You are the ones who vote, and I don't know why you're exonerating yourselves. At the same time, the majority will have their way, the minority will have their say. So we were not just put there by God. We came from the people. That's what the people chose. So what you put in is what you get out of it. I'm a farmer. If you put fertilizer which is not enough for you to get the yield, you'll not get the yield you want. So don't blame anybody. Don't blame God that it did not rain. It rained. But did you put sufficient fertilizer for you to get the tonnage that you want as a farmer so that you're able to make profit and also buy inputs for the next season?
But you also spoke, Honorable, you also spoke about this name calling. You also spoke about quality members withdrawing from this race. Now, let's talk about that as an ingredient to what we, at the end of the day, get in parliament.
First of all, the political party internal processes are not democratic. You must understand that. There was no need for ZANU-PF to incorporate FAS, because rigging has always happened in ZANU-PF.
Who is FAS?
With this FAS. Some NGO organization which is run by the deputy director of the CIO, retired Brigadier General Tapfumane, which more or less, you know, what ZANU-PF has done, they've just subcontracted their server to somebody else. So all the data and all the information is now being subcontracted. State security and every security organ, understanding this, has a right to protect the president. So where the president is, if it's ZANU-PF, they have a right to report on what is happening in ZANU-PF. So they did not have to bring in FAS. Already the reports would be there. Mugabe, the late, is a good example. Did he have to bring in? No. He brought in all veterans to mobilize for him, who were part of the struggle. Are you with me? You don't have to bring in any government institution, because any institution of government has a right to follow the events of the ruling party in the name of state security. If the ruling party is not stable, it has an effect on state security. The police do the same. Military intelligence do the same. Prisons do the same. Air Force do the same. They must be able to say, President, we as a Central Intelligence Organization see that there are too many problems in the party. While there are problems, we anticipate this. You don't have to incorporate them, because the rigging happened already. It used to happen. ZANU-PF rigging is part of politics. But I'm able to say, Dara, blessed, ndakujika isori, wakashanza mari, $20 or $20, but ndibetrepa ku campaign. We work together when we have chatted. That's what democracy is all about. That's what they do in ZANU-PF. They find themselves. But now to have a mediator, it becomes a problem. And now they blame everything on the mediator and so forth. Zimbabweans must understand this. The security sector in this country has the responsibility of protecting the president wherever he is, so that it does not become a national security threat, so that for some reason people, because of the factional politics, there's a faction in ZANU-PF that wants to oust the president. They are able to go and report that, president, this is what is happening, and that is a national security threat. It is in the interest of the nation. That's the reason why I say, people say to him, but you're always commenting on ZANU-PF. Rightfully so, they are the ruling party. That's why I had an argument, and I did not agree with the Madam Speaker, Honorable Tendai Mabete, for taking me out. How many ministers say the ZANU-PF government has been fixing roads? I've never argued that because it's the ZANU-PF government. But why stop me debating and I say, but Gukuraundi happened under ZANU-PF? And then she says, you cannot mention a political party here. We are in this house. The executive, the ruling party is ZANU-PF. The government is ZANU-PF because the party is supreme. Government is under the party. That's how it works. The Communist part of China will tell you that. But we have not been able to do that.
Are we a communist party? I mean, are we a communist country?
We were a communist country. We like to associate with communism. Whether we practice it or not is a different thing altogether.
Now, Honorable, I want us to talk about this issue that you raised. The ZANU-PF is parcel of corruption in this country. And there is this law that says if you speak bad or if you speak bad against your country, that would be illegal and you'd be arrested. Now, what I don't see is if you do bad against your country, you will be arrested and you'll be charged for lack of patriotism. Let's talk about that.
But my first question, who's qualified to say you have done bad? Who's qualified? Maybe there must be a trial. You must be arrested, you go before the courts, you're found guilty, and then you're charged. But without a proper process, you can't say that. That's what I'm saying. That's a bill which has been a waste of money. That's a bill which is personal. That's a bill which does not make ZANU-PF popular. Because on 1 minute you're engaging and re-engaging. But while you're engaging and re-engaging, you're still coming up with laws which are barbaric, which are cake, which ultimately will not ensure good governance of the country.
So do you think the president is being ill-advised?
Yes, I'm glad that he hasn't signed the PVO bill. As yet, I think the former late president also held on to that, and I think he's put his mind to it to say, but what does this help at the end of it? If any NGO has violated the laws, there are laws that you can use to then deal with them and so forth. I've always said you don't have to ban the whole bush because of a rabbit. You can't do that, and that's what exactly has happened. The same thing with the patriotic thing. They have more people in their party. They have more numbers of people at Panduka. They expelled us, Takanzita Panduka, and so forth. So does it mean that I'm not patriotic at the end of the day? So who really is qualified to say this one is patriotic, this one is not patriotic? You were talking to this person. How do I know talking to this person I was actually talking about the good of the country? You know, it's a very confusing bill, which also, in terms of the codification, criminal codification act, does not also resonate well with the lot. And it will be interesting to see who is the first one to be arrested and what will be the outcome of that case and so forth. And what will they be standing on? I look forward to the sharp lawyers of this country challenging that when somebody has been arrested. And it's wrong timing as we go towards election. You know, they prioritize that bill instead of dealing with the ZEC bill. You know, the ZEC bill did not see its end of the day in this parliament. Yet it was already there. Yet it's important for electoral reforms. It's important for the elections. We debate it when the president has done a proclamation already on when the elections will be. And that becomes useless. You cannot do anything about it. So how important was the PVO bill to the Electoral Act? How important was the Patriotic Bill to the Electoral Act? How important were they? You know? And this is why I question the opposition too. Why did you keep your eyes on the ball to ensure that you're not sidetracked? You know, as Parliament, why did we not bring this up to say how far are we with the reforms? The Motlanthe report is not out. The Ochena report is not out.
But maybe when you raise these issues, you're ejected out of Parliament, aren't you?
Oh yes, that is the problem when you have overzealous speakers of the day. I believe that if the Honourable Advocate Jacob Mdenda, Jacob Francis, Nzwindamlimo Mdenda had been around, he would have been mature enough to allow the debate to happen.
But he was the one who also attempted to block the debate on the gold mafia. The same speaker you say is mature.
I don't think he would allow that. He allowed the $15 billion diamond inquiry to happen. He allowed that to happen, which is even more than the gold mafia. We did it. He gave us the support. We even wrote to the former late president to come before us. So why he would stop this, I wouldn't really understand it. What I know that there are a lot of court cases which are there. It was the same thing as the Wajir Jena issue. We must respect the doctrine of the separation of powers. The judiciary also has got certain powers. We must respect that. It's the same thing as the parliamentary issue on the thing laptops. Now that the clerk of parliament has been arrested, is before the courts with ZEC. We can't debate it. We can't debate it. It's not that you've been stopped, but we've got to respect that at the end of the day. So unless there are certain points which are specific, which you want to bring up, which you cannot come up in court, it's a bit of a problem, because he has his lawyers. They'll say, but they discussed this, they judged him before the courts. And with social media, there is that influence which can come through and say, you are guilty before you've even gone through the trial. So I would not say the speaker wanted to protect anybody, but he's able to guide us in terms of what we need to achieve. That's why I gave you the example of the 15 billion diamond inquiry that we did when the former president was there. Okay, and I know they tried to stop him many times. The next thing, they were going to get rid of him, but they did not.
Honorable Mliswa, we go into election with the economy going crazy. But President Emmerson Mnangagwa, upon assuming power, has put the economy on his agenda and said he's going to make sure that we've got a better performing economy. Let's talk about the economy.
Yeah, the economy is the elephant in the room. The rate is crazy. 1 minute it's 8,000. You know, for example, we were given 8 million, 11 million for CDF. The rate is 8,000. What do you do with it? I decided I don't touch it. You know, if you touch it, people say, you know, I was given CDF money, but how much does that amount to? Over $1,000. Don't have $1,000 to do projects. The projects I'm doing are worth more than that. So to stay away from controversy, you don't touch it. To me, it's how we have not been honest about the economy. And now the true colors are now coming out to show that the economy was bad. Myself and Honorable BT always said, let's dollarize. In dollarizing does not mean that we are doing away with our own currency. Are you with me? There's a time when your currency will be weak, but while it's weak, you know, you have to rest it. The same thing as you, with the work that you do, if you're given something bed rest, some young man takes over from you. It does not mean you've lost your job. The doctor said, have some bed rest, okay, and Zim dollar, so that you recuperate, rejuvenate, and so forth. So the Zim dollar is in that situation, but you can't keep on hammering it. You can, and now it's now, you know, if it was a human being, it would have been dead with the rate at 8,000. When we're talking about this, it was 800 to 1,000 and so forth within a short period of time. And then you're busy accusing external forces. It has nothing to do with external forces.
Let's talk about these accusations. President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his team have actually said that business are fighting against them, and that business is looking to sabotage ZANU-PF ahead of an election.
No, but one of the issues that the Governor of the Reserve Bank has always spoken about is production in the country. We have minerals. How much are we selling the minerals for before they're even mined? There's a price to everything. There's a price to everything, okay? Even before you marry, you must, you know, have a child with somebody's child. You must pay something. Dowry, lobola, you pay something. Then when you start having kids, a different thing altogether. But they don't even charge lobola in terms of the resources. Look at the resources we have. Platinum, lithium, gold, it continues. But what has come out in terms of the resources we have to justify that we're a better nation due to the resources? We are not at all getting any money. That money must be going through to the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank must have enough money because of the minerals we have. Despite having a 20 billion plan for the mining sector, 12 billion growth in the mining sector. With GDI, Great Dyke Investment, which is in my constituency, it has closed down. It belonged to the Russians and so forth. It was going to attract 5,000 jobs and many other, the informal sector was also going to benefit. And that has not happened and so forth. External forces, where do they come in terms of what you call it? You are the ones who are inviting them to engage and re-engage. These are external forces. So if they're so bad, why are you engaging and re-engaging? Policy inconsistency. That's where it comes in at the end of the day. I'm saying you are my enemy, but I'm engaging and I'm re-engaging you. What's the point of doing that? There's got to be clarity on that. They must understand that the fact that the president says that Zimbabwe, it must be practical at the end of the day. But I don't mind our assets going to anybody in this country. Look at Nigeria. Their refinery, they gave it to Dangote. They gave it to Dangote. In giving that refinery to Dangote, Dangote is only able to make his country bigger. He cannot take anything out of Nigeria. It will come in, it will build Nigeria. But if you give people who are not for your country, they take out and they go and enjoy the money there. So let's learn to give resources to our people so that they're empowered, and the only other home they know in Zimbabwe. That then empowers everybody. The Indigenization Act, they suspended it. Why did you suspend an act that empowers the people? 49% is for the foreigner, 51% local people. The government has got 30%, 31% in terms of the sovereign wealth fund, 10% the community, 10% the workers. Everybody is empowered. At the end of the day, when that company is making money, they enjoy the profits. Why get rid of that? To appease who? What have we benefited from removing that Indigenization Act? Nothing. We are poorer than before. The other thing about leadership, because there are laws which a certain government made when they were in power, a certain leader, because you fight does not mean you must also remove those laws. It was a mistake for government to remove the Indigenization Act because it was benefiting the people of Zimbabwe. Inflation, the civil servants, okay? Look at how do you factor in the inflation in terms of their salary at the end of the month? Blessed, you tell me it's 8,000, okay, already it's not good. So in between the weeks where it has happened, how are you going to best give a civil servant enough money for disposable income so that they're able to buy basics? They're able to, and when they complain, you say they are not for the government and so forth. So what else do we then do? When legislators want to speak about that, you stop them from talking about this and so forth. Look at it, 8,000 is the rate. And how much are they paid? We are paid, for those who don't know, we are paid 700,000 right now. Divide 8,000 into 700,000. How much do you come up with? It is less than $100. It's less than $100. Okay, you have the judiciary. We hear they've been given loans for 400,000. Okay, the executive, they were given 350,000. The legislator was given 40,000. I'm not against people getting loans, but at the end of the day, we are getting these things in US dollars. Why also don't we pay the people in US dollars at the end of the day? The government is the biggest culprit of inflation because they cushion the workers in US dollars. That's an admission that your currency is not strong. So why play that hypocrisy? Why play that hypocrisy? Why are you cushioning people in US dollars? Then when you say your currency, so they are the ones who are sabotaging the Zimbabwe dollar. They don't believe in it. Give the people the Zimbabwe dollar. Not only that, why don't they come up with a plan that if you have a company, a private company, okay, which is generating 80% of their revenue in US dollars, 20% in Zimbabwean dollar, why doesn't that apply to the worker? Government does not have to do anything. Why does that not apply to the worker? If you're getting 50% of Forex and then the rest in RD, do that. Government does not do anything, but it is the companies who have to do it. So those companies are now taking that US dollar out, they go and burn, they pay their workers in Zim dollar, yet they're generating foreign currency. Can there be a law today that any company which is generating income in foreign currency, okay, must pay their workers that proportion in foreign currency if it's 50%, 60 or 90%. There's nothing that stops a company from paying people 100% in foreign currency if they're generating foreign currency. Why the Zimbabwean dollar? And where is government getting the US dollar anyway to be able to be cushioning the government workers and everybody else? Because you've cushioned them in US dollars. They now want US dollars because it's a better currency than the Zimbabwean dollar. We are not abandoning our Zimbabwean dollar.
President Emerson Mnangagwa said that if the West comes to the West, he would ban the United States dollar and make sure that everyone uses the Zim dollar. Do you think that could work?
I don't know if there's any country in the world which measures its wealth in their currency and not the US dollar. I don't know if there's any currency, any country in the world which measures their wealth in their own currency. Even Russia today, the wealth of those billionaires is in US dollars and so forth. This is where America has power. You know, at times you don't have to ignore. You don't have to, despite having differences, you don't have to ignore the power that America has over the world and so forth. And their currency is what makes them powerful. Do they have to be there? No. It's their currency which has to be there. And once their currency is there, you are being controlled by them. If the president did that, I don't think anybody would go against that. But the questions would be, how well are we performing at the end of the day? If we travel outside Zimbabwe, are we going to use the Zim dollar? We're in the international world, we're in a global village.
In Parliament, you at one point you asked the ministers to put their wallets out so that you could see if they hold any local currency. Now, did you get any response?
No, it is reality, including myself. It is reality at the end of the day. When I'm sick, when I need medication, I have to use the US dollar at the end of the day to survive and all that. So it would be impractical and unfair on the electorate for us to tell them something when something else is happening. Part of leadership is to admit to the people. You know, this is something that I hope that our leaders can learn to say, we've walked through this journey, it's been very difficult, we thought we could do it ourselves, we can't. We need you all together. Let's move together.
Are you saying we are led by hypocrites?
Oh yeah, there's no two ways about it. You have leaders who think of themselves, not think of the nation at the end of the day. Because ultimately, there's no result, tangible result on the ground on how the welfare of the people has improved. There's no tangible.
ZANU-PF disputes that. They say ED works. They say they have changed this economy from where it was left by President Robert Mugabe, the late, may his soul rest in peace, to better. Are you disputing this?
There's no debate about ED working. ED works. ED has worked more than Mugabe, no two ways about it. But Mugabe did not work as hard as ED, but he was in control of the country. He was in control of the people. There was discipline. ED is working hard, but there is no discipline. Everybody's doing what they want and so forth.
But the buck stops there, doesn't it?
That is an issue which I've always spoken about. He's the CEO of the country. Listen, his work ethic is out of this world. 7 o'clock is in the office. The great things that he's done. He's pushing the agenda and so forth. But he hasn't got a team to complement him at the end of the day.
But it's his team. He put it there.
I totally agree with you. It's his team. He put it there. And when you put your team there, they don't perform. You suffer what they call collateral damage. Oh, no two ways. His work ethic is out of this world. I admire it. Even when he was in Parliament, you could see that he has a phenomenal work ethic. You know, and I'd hoped that he could find people with that same DNA and would be in a different space altogether in terms of the transformation of the economy and so forth.
Has this work translated to anything better or positive for the people of Zimbabwe?
You know, you can't ignore the infrastructure that we see today. And when your children have not had food for 3 days, whatever comes before them, they'll enjoy it and they'll still tell you it's good food because they're starving. So we have no choice but to appreciate what's being done, whether it's the best or not, a different thing together. But to also say that some of these roles within 2 years are dysfunctional. There's got to be a due diligence in the companies that are contracted, in the way that they are mixing, you know, the tar, so that there is durability. That's one of the issues which I think has got to be looked at, because after 2 years you're forced to do the same road again. So did this money go into people's pockets? Okay, and if it went into people's pockets, what have they done on the work that they did, which has not been done properly? This is where government comes in from an oversight, parliament from an oversight and accountability point of view.
Some have argued, Honorable Mliswa, that the reason why there's this major push in terms of constructing roads, which are actually capital projects which are done on a cash basis, is because there's a lot of corruption around this, and those who are pushing it are not pushing it for the benefit of the people, but for self-benefit, which you appear to be confirming that the roads that are being made are not even durable.
Let me share this with you. Corruption is all over, world over. But let me give you this example. A friend of mine said, the problem with Zimbabwe, you are given money to build a road 100 kilometers, but you build a road which is 10 kilometers and the rest you chow it. It goes to corruption. But other countries where there's corruption and developed countries, they build the road up to 90 kilometers and then they chow the 10 kilometers. So there's nowhere there is no corruption. But you must not be corrupt to a point where you are not able to serve the people. So a 10-kilometer road, which is supposed to be 100, what will it do? A 90-kilometer road, which is supposed to be 100, will do something. So people don't even notice that this road is not even 90 kilometers, because as they are driving, they're probably counting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, they stop. They say, that's a great road. They are happy. But with our infrastructure, 10 kilometers, already there are humps. The rest of the 80 kilometers is dust road. So corruption is all over, but it has to be done at a scale where you are basically making sure that the country, the ordinary citizen, benefit. They see a change at the end of the day. And it has been cancerous, no two ways about it. The president has spoken about it, but I think, again, they've sabotaged the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. I'm the chairperson of APNAC, the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, both in Zimbabwe, and I sit on the board in Africa. And soon I'll be the Secretary General for the Southern Africa Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. So we work with institutions which are involved in corruption, and ZAC have done a great job. But what people don't understand, again, that ZAC does not prosecute. It only arrests. The state prosecutes. ZAC does not preside over cases. There's also a different thing. So when ZAC arrests and one is given bail and everything, it's not the fault of ZAC. Okay? It is the state which then takes over the case. And I think it's important for people to understand that ZAC have done a phenomenal job under the leadership of Chairperson Justice Lois Matanda Moyo, who's done a phenomenal job. The Executive Secretary being Sukai Tongogara. Those are iron ladies who've done a phenomenal job. It's the same thing with ZAC, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. People might attack the chairperson, Justice Chikumba, but I think she comes out in the open and she's able to speak her mind. But it's up to you to do what you believe is right within the thing realm of the law. You know, you must not get people out of the law. You must get people to do things within the law, because constitutionalism is important. What is it that ZAC has done wrong? But yet all this time you had reforms to work on, you had a lot to do in teaching your electorate, but you did not do that. But you now want to blame ZAC. Where has ZAC gone wrong? That electoral bill I'm talking about, is it the problem of ZAC? ZAC also wanted it. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission also wanted it to be amended, but we did not do it. In not doing it, do you blame them?
Let us talk about this issue that you're talking about, the judiciary, its role in making sure that corruption is prosecuted, and also judiciary playing a critical role as we go into election. And just before we go to election, they're given thousands of United States dollars. Let's talk about this.
You know, I have said that we have also benefited as members of parliament from the loan of 40,000, which is really peanuts, because the judiciary is subject to scrutiny by us from oversight. So is executive. But they've gotten more money, we've gotten less. And my question to Zimbabweans is that why do you want the legislator to be poor? How will he conduct his work without enough tools of trade? The judiciary has been given that much. Where it has come from, I don't know. The executive, where it came from, I don't know, to be honest with you. We were given stands, okay, and that was part of the housing allowance. We've got a 30,000 loan, 30,000 facility for cars. We still have not been given that, which was approved by Parliament. Members of Parliament have only got one car. The bad news that people must understand is that when in Parliament you become poorer than richer. When you go to Parliament, don't go there looking for a job. Go there to serve people and make sure you have enough money.
Let's talk about the judiciary at the moment, Honorable. The judiciary has been accused of being captured and of passing judgments or rulings that are political against perceived political opponents. And here we are on the eve of an election. They are handed confetti by the same players who will be adjudicated on if the election results are disputed.
You see, that emanates, and I'm a legislator, let me refer to the law here. That emanates from the First Amendment. The First Amendment, when it was passed, empowered the president to appoint judges. Okay. To appoint judges. So even yourself, as an editor, why would you appoint reporters that are not going to work with you and do what you want? Because first of all, let's go to the law and say, is what he's doing unconstitutional or constitutional? It was passed in Parliament.
You passed it?
Yes.
Why did you pass it?
Because it's a law that we believe that if the head of state puts his team, if anything goes wrong, he's accountable. The same constitution also has a provision of impeaching the president if he's not done something right. So there are checks and balances. So that's why when people say, but you passed this law, but there's also a law, like the former president, R.G. Mugabe, the late, he was impeached by Parliament. That's a law, which is there and so forth. So in putting your team together and them not performing, you must understand that you suffer collateral damage and you be the one to be blamed. If there was no law that said that, I would say fine. Even if he said, listen, we want to do this, whoever comes and says we passed the law, but there's still a law which says if there's misconduct, you can be impeached.
But let's look at the public perception, Honorable. Does this work well in a democracy where justice must not only be done, but must also be seen to be done?
You've of late been also talking about how judges are not well remunerated and that's why they are corrupt. So was this also not important for them to get loans so that they're cushioned, so that they stop the corruption? Are you with me? There's also that thinking that, give them the loans so that they're not corrupt at the end of the day. Let's see how the judgments will go.
What is the source of this money?
I think that's now for Parliament to interrogate, and certainly it will be interrogated today and tomorrow. We'll be in Parliament. Us is to now ask, where did this money come from? Did we pass it in Parliament? No, we didn't. Where did this come from? Now we need to follow. And the Public Accounts Committee, which is chaired by Honorable Due, has the power to now go after that. And
so is it not where the problem is? That the money is being smuggled without coming from Parliament, so it appears as if it's coming from individuals.
But remember, Parliament has now the power to now ask. Remember, the Constitution and the laws also give provision to the minister seeking condonation on anything that would have done. But what is critical right now is to be able, because the MPs have been given 40,000, it does not mean they must be quiet. They must still continue doing their job. And this is one of the issues that we have to ask, because I don't want to also answer you from an uninformed position. I would love my integrity and dignity to remain intact and say to you, I can assure you that the public will know the answer. I will go and question this in Parliament, which is a public forum, which is an institution for the people, which represents the people. Say, where did the $400,000 given to the judges gone to? First of all, I must ask, was it given to them? If it was given to them, then where did it come from? And how are they going to pay it back?
In a country where there's demand for the use of the local currency, why would a government dish out United States dollars?
They say that if you want to really test the heart of a politician, it's towards elections. They give. They want to be in power. Don't blame them for giving because you don't have. That is state apparatus. That's how it works. That's how it operates. They've got the resources. They want to be in power. They want to make everyone happy. So they'll give. But the question is, judges themselves have their dignity and integrity to uphold. Are they going to uphold that without compromising? That's really the question at the end of the day. Listen, the issue of job scholar, I can't not talk about it. It hurts me. Here is a colleague who's there, who's a friend of the court. What crime has Job created to a point that he must be in there? If he was breaching any conditions of bail, you come up with more punitive, stricter measures. But his freedom is important. His family is suffering, more than him. I've been in prison before. I don't suffer. That's the reason why you say I'm hardened. That's the reason why I'm so liberated, because I've been there. It's no longer a place where I fear anymore. And when I get in there, I also take charge. I also become a chairman of them. Once a chairman, always a chairman. Even in prison, I chair them, because that's exactly what it is. So I'm at home in there. But what about the families? I've got a mother who's nearly 80. You arrest me. How does she feel? And so forth. But is he not entitled to freedom? Is he not entitled to free trial?
You speak in the same sentence, Honorable Mliswa. You speak about job scholars' right to freedom, and you speak about judges' dignity, and I find that contradictory.
What I've said at the end of the day, the judges, the legislator, must ensure that their integrity and dignity is upheld. So is the executive. It's how they conduct themselves thereafter.
Are they conducting themselves in a manner that restores dignity, respect, and reverence of the position of the judicial officers?
When I look at some of the judgments which are made by some judges, I would say I think some of the decisions are merely political at the end of the day. I cannot brush all of them with the same paint, but you can see that this decision is a political decision, and at the end of the day, does it help the country? They take oath to represent the country, and that oath that they took before everybody else to represent the country, is that what they are doing at the end of the day? If they're not doing that, they'll be judged otherwise, and that judgment day will also come. It does not mean if you're a judge you also don't have judgment day. The judgment day comes through the Almighty. You don't see it, but certainly do good to people, serve your country well, honestly, and make sure your judgments are not at all influenced by anybody else, but mere facts and the law.
Let us look at the elections as we go closing, Honorable Mliswa. What is your prediction, apart from the fact that you're winning in Norton?
Thank you. My prediction was I am winning. And the opposition is not there. The opposition, unfortunately, is not there. Unless there are miracles out there, I don't see the opposition anymore. This is 2 months before elections. They don't have the candidates out there, and so forth. ZANU-PF has already given the candidate cars to go out in the rural areas. How are they going to go out there? How are you going to be able to match the pace and to mobilize the people without resources? So to me, no one knows who the MP is. Everybody knows who the president is. But that president must know that he needs MPs to mobilize for him. If there are no MPs and structures to mobilize for you, who will? Even the church has structures. Even God created structures. He created leaders, the 12 disciples. So how then does a political party not also have its own leaders? When the church itself created structures. I'm named Peter, and he was one of the disciples, and he was the brains behind everything. Every disciple was there for something. So who are the disciples of Triple C? And who are they preaching to? Because when you become a disciple, you need to take the word to the people. So who's taking the manifesto to the people of Triple C without a structure? You think God would do that? When God himself had things structures. Why do we live in this world where we are constantly, building castles in the air.
So your prediction is the opposition is losing?
Is there an opposition, first of all? That's what I'm saying, there's no opposition. I don't even know who I'm contesting with in Noto as an MP. I don't know who. And I don't know who I'm contesting with. And whoever I'm contesting with, what resources do they have to do what I've done in the last years in Norton? They don't have. If the people of Norton decide to vote for somebody, not me, it's not my loss. It is the loss of Norton. I'm that legislator who's confident to say that I'm there to serve people. I'm not there to serve myself. But you must know that when I don't represent you.
So you're saying President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa is marching to victory come 23 August?
There's no opposition. I don't know what else God has. I can't speak for God, but there is no opposition. And I'm saying I don't know who I'm contesting in Norton. Let's go back home. Let's stay home. Who? 1 minute it's Matemera, 1 minute it's Mhlanga, 1 minute it's Tangirai. So that's politics on social media. On the ground is different. It's the same thing as my Sekuru Sevia Kasukwere. You know, he wants to come and stand as president here. Nobody takes away the fact that he was a political commissar of ZANU-PF. But the truth of the matter, you need to be on the ground. You need to be on the ground. Him and I have a discussion several times of saying, Sekuru, politics is not done away. Politics is done you being on the ground. And Zimbabwean politics is different. People say to you, why should I be campaigning for you when you're not here?
Some say that Kasukwe is throwing his head, his name in the head has divided ZANU-PF. Do you see that?
No. It has not divided ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF divides itself. And it did divide itself. It's a revolutionary party. It's able to take its own leader out, like they did with RIGM. It's able to put its own leader back. That's ZANU-PF. The fights within ZANU-PF are internal. And because of these primary elections, they've pushed themselves to this internal fighting which is happening, which will cost them heavily. I said that already. But to think that there is any external force that will disrupt what is going in ZANU-PF, that will move. But before you also think of standing for being president, you must also look at yourself as a person. I always said, and he knows that, I spoke to him and I said, listen, you are better off in ZANU-PF. And then he said to him, but you must go back to ZANU. He says, no, I cannot go back to ZANU because I've won as independent twice. Why should I take that gamble? Not only that, I've enjoyed my independence. I want to lose as an independent.
So you're saying that Honorable Kasukwere is not fit or competent to compete as a president?
No, I did not say that, but I said 2 months to contest as a president and you're not on the ground is impossible. And win, it's impossible. It's impossible. 2 months, you throw in hat and you want to contest as a president, whether you're Sevia Kasukwere, whether you are whoever, there's no ways because you need to get around the 210 constituencies in the country. They need to know you. You need to go and tell them because the way ZANU-PF works, they need you to come. You know, there's a time when the former late president was so powerful, Mugabe, that there are these women who were put together when the factions of ZANU-PF came, when somebody said, but Mugabe, and you know what the answer was? And I'm not told about Panapa. So what am I saying? If Sekuru Kasukwere wants to be the president, there are people who are waiting to see it's him who wants to be president. Word of mouth doesn't work. Listen, after 2023 elections, there's an opportunity for rebranding ZANU-PF, for new forces to come in and so forth. If he's working towards that, it makes sense. But it's just too late for any politician right now, any politician, to say, I'm standing for presidents and I'll win. It's too late.
After the elections have been won, as you say, there's no opposition, so ZANU-PF would win. What are they going to do for us? Do you think that can change this country?
I think that's a very good question, but that's also a quick question for the electorate out there. That, as you've heard, that ZANU-PF, if they win the election, what are they going to do for us? The question is to the electorate, what are they going to do for you? You know, and you know, that's a very pertinent question. Do our people really scrutinize enough? Do they understand politics? Do they understand the Constitution? No, they don't. The Constitution itself is not even in the 16 languages. You know, 13 if you want to be specific. You know, it's not there. So how can people be free when they don't have a constitution in their own language? Yet the Bible is in all languages, and that's the reason why the word of God is known by everyone. That is a sacred document of the people. So they are yet to understand their rights, they are yet to read the Constitution. The moment that everybody has a Constitution in their hand, that's why America is great. That's why America is great. America is great because everybody understands the Constitution. And no one can do anything outside the Constitution. Be it Donald Trump, be it Joe Biden, be it Barack Obama. That's why when they're in office, they've got to uphold the Constitution and do things which are constitutional and which are for the good of the country. Britain, you look at the Prime Minister as resigning and everything. They don't have to be told to resign. He knows I've not done good, I must go. The kingdom is in control, but you have to work within what is expected of you as a leader. How many Prime Ministers have stepped down in Britain? But the country continues. The country continues. We must stop making individuals superior than the country. We must stop making institutions, individuals superior than institutions. The beauty about America, Britain, what I like, the Western world, European world, is their institutions. Their institutions are strong. And that's what keeps the country going. We must strengthen our institutions. We must empower our institutions. We must make sure that the law is followed.
In your last words, Honorable Temba Peter Mliswa, what would you share with the electorate, with the candidates, and the international world as Zimbabwe looks into elections?
Don't be emotional when it comes to elections. Don't make politics your hobby or your lifestyle. It's part of you, but don't be emotional, because politicians come and go. The country remains. The question is, what is good for my country? What is good for my children? What is good for my parents? What is good for the pensioners? What is good for the people coming into Zimbabwe to see? Once we put Zimbabwe on the agenda, then you'll be able to put a good leader. Not only that, is that leader God-fearing? Is this leader likely to uphold this country's Christianity values? Is this leader likely to uphold the culture, tradition, and heritage of this country? We are near under there. Is what we are doing in tandem with their values? God is first. And then we come to ancestors. I've always closed by saying, you know that Denga, Nepasi, after all has been said and done, there's God. And they're the ancestors. And they'll dictate the course of where Zimbabwe should be. A human being is mere mortal. Is not part of the power-broking processes, or we should be a leader. That's why I say, don't be emotional. Work with the government of the day. Benefit from the government of the day. Don't be polarized. If there's a land reform under the ZANU-PF government, go for the land. The name of the land is in your name. If there's a residential stand, go and get it. It's in your name. But don't say because it's a ZANU-PF government, I will not farm. The opposition are lamenting why they did not benefit from the land reform today. The young people are lamenting why they did not go for the stands which were offered to them in the name of a national housing policy which is affordable. Today you could be building your house, but your house is in your name. It's not in the party's name. More important, let's ensure that we remain inclusive, we love each other, and we don't hurt each other. For tomorrow, as politicians,
when we walk away from it, you shall still remain as neighbors. When you remain as neighbors, how will you go to the next door neighbor and ask for mealie meal or for salt or for milk when you were involved in an act of violence because of us politicians?
Thank you very much, Honorable Temba Mliswa, for sharing your thoughts with us. And I would want to wish you the best as we approach nomination court and also as we go into elections. Zimbabwe, at the end of the day, ultimately is bigger and better than all of us. And it is our responsibility as citizens, as the people of this nation, to make Zimbabwe bigger, better, and to compete on the table of family of nations. Now this was and this will always be the Free Talk. With me, your host as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Now thank you for choosing us as your station of choice.